Hello, everyone. My name is Monty Nima, and I'm a junior here in the state of Michigan. Welcome to our 2020 Tech Series, and thank you all so much for joining us today.
Hi everyone, my name is Aaliyah and I'm also a junior at Novi High School. We're so excited to be the moderators of this panel today.
Today, we have our inspiring speaker, Leila, an incoming freshman at MIT. Would you like to give everyone a little introduction about yourself?
Sure thing. So as mentioned, I am an incoming freshman at MIT this fall, where I am planning on studying a combination of computer science and neuroscience, and potentially doing a double major or a minor in either business analytics or political science. In the future, I hope to take my undergraduate education to either focus on artificial intelligence development or hopefully work with venture capitalists in artificial intelligence or other tech firms.
That's so cool. So can you tell us more about how you became involved in STEM and about your journey with STEM?
That's a great question. I think overall, my involvement in STEM actually comes with an influence from other fields, or in other words, other fields I'm interested in actually influenced my interest in STEM. So in the beginning of high school, I thought that I was a pre-med student. I really thought I would be going into medical school. I was just naturally gravitated towards STEM ever since I can remember. However, in high school, though, that view of pre-med shifted more and more towards tech and leveraging technology for sustainable solutions. So in my sophomore year, I started to become interested in the field of sustainability, and more specifically, how technology can be used to address issues regarding sustainability, ranging from environmental degradation to overall what are the most sustainable practices that one could use for technological development. So in my sophomore and junior year, I started to focus on these fields and started to intern at a local university, which used sustainable natural methods with technology to address issues regarding environmental degradation. And with this research experience, I knew that I wanted to use technology for practical applications. But the question I had then in the second half of high school was, how exactly am I going to be using technology more specifically? And so in my junior and senior year, I became interested in the field of computer science and artificial intelligence, just because I believe that these are budding fields in which it could have many practical applications as well as leverage multiple solutions in the future. And so in my junior year, I became part of the MIT Women's Technology Program for electrical engineering and computer science. And this program kind of solidified and gave me a more refined idea of what exactly I want to do with technology, because it gave me an idea of what exactly computer science entails, what exactly are the practical applications of these fields, and most importantly, how can I use these fields more particularly in the future. And so right now, I would say in my journey, it's probably a continuing and evolving process. But right now I am interested in artificial intelligence, and I hope to leverage my usage or my development in artificial intelligence to address local sustainable issues in the future.
Oh, I think that's really cool to see how this program that you were involved in, it sort of developed your interest in artificial intelligence and tech as a whole. So just going off of that, would you like to tell us a little bit more about what you've learned from being a part of that program, and what specifically you enjoy about AI or just tech in general?
For sure. I actually would highly recommend this program. Overall, this program is a 4-week immersive experience where you get to live at MIT and actually study electrical engineering, computer science, and the mathematical fields that relate to electrical engineering and computer science. It's meant for incoming female seniors. And overall, I would say that this program is very beneficial because firstly, it gave me hands-on lab experience in these fields. And secondly, I was able to take classes in these fields, which gave me a direct insight into the actual material that I would be learning, which first of all helped me to solidify my interest in the subjects in the first place. But secondly, I would also say with the program, what was a really neat feature is that every day we had speaker lunches with professionals and other researchers in the fields that gave us more insight about what exactly are the practical applications of technology and artificial intelligence. Something I was really interested in actually was a presentation that was done earlier in the program that was talking about technology and how that can be used in developing prosthetics in developing nations. And I think that's a really interesting intersection where we see that artificial intelligence not only could be helpful and just merely in the field of technological development, but it also has important practical applications in terms of interacting with developing nations. So what that helped me realize is that overall, technology also needs this interaction with other local governments and other nations to ensure that there actually is effective implementation of technology. And so that was mainly the insight that I got, was not only the technical subjects and learning more about what these fields are, but moreover, and I would actually say most importantly, how technology is truly a multidisciplinary field and requires an understanding of multiple different fields, ranging from political science all the way to ethics.
Oh, that sounds like such a cool and engaging program. So one thing a lot of high schoolers and also middle schoolers are really worried about in school, like I know this makes me anxious too, and that's public speaking. So do you have any advice for students on how to kind of do public speaking?
Yes, okay. That was something I actually feared as well throughout high school. So for me, I got a lot of public speaking experience through speech and debate. I would say though, I was exactly in the same boat. Freshman year, I was not a natural public speaker whatsoever. I was just afraid to speak in class, let alone in front of larger audiences. In order for me to give tips about public speaking, I would truly say that to be a public speaker, you don't necessarily have to be a natural at it. I would say, though, that anybody who wants to further their ability in public speaking should take any opportunity that they have to do so. So for me, for example, I joined speech and debate, even though it was a challenge and absolutely terrifying to me, because I knew that public speaking could be a valuable skill. And through multiple experiences where I was forced to use my voice or at least give presentations about certain subjects, I therefore got that hands-on experience with public speaking and learned that public speaking can actually be an acquired talent. So I would actually say my main advice to high schooler is in general, that even if you aren't a natural public speaker, I certainly wasn't. There are still plenty of opportunities for you to further your public speaking skills. And I would say take that initiative and go outside your comfort zone, because there are truly a lot of rewards that come with public speaking. And then additionally, I would like to say as well, in particular in the field of STEM or technology, I also believe that communication is a very valuable skill, especially right now. Overall, when artificial intelligence and other technologies have a lot of ethical qualms about certain developments, there is a need for future developers or future scientists in general to be able to leverage their communication skills to clearly articulate what technological development will actually look like in the future. So being able to have this effective articulation is going to be an important skill in STEM, especially right now where we do see these ethical questions arising.
Wow, I think it's like so cool that like before you were like really nervous about like public speaking, but you actually took it upon yourself to like improve that by directly joining a debate thing, which is like a huge move. Like that's like, I think that's really awesome that you took initiative to do that. So what motivated you to sort of pursue your dreams and your goals in terms of like your like journey through STEM and like public speaking?
That's a great question. I think overall, my motivation was actually becoming very aware about the world. The reason why I would say that, though, is because, as I mentioned in a previous question, my influence in STEM was in my interest, in STEM was influenced by other fields. And so in this case, one of the fields that kind of influenced my interest in STEM was current events and international relations. As I became more aware about the systemic issues happening across the world in current events, whether just it be right now, inequality is a very large scale issue, the lack of access to basic resources, and environmental degradation, just to list a few. I realized that there is a need right now for new ideas and practical solutions. And just because in the past, I've always been naturally gravitated towards STEM because I really like the field. And I would say that I just think analytically, and so my skills aligned with the field. But this really gave me a motivation to find a purpose in STEM, because I realized that because there are these large scale issues and a need for new ideas, STEM is a perfect field to do that. There are infinite opportunities for individuals to explore the field, whether it be through theoretical research all the way up to practical development. There are a lot of possibilities for students to be able to further a field that's intended to, firstly, further our understanding of the world, and secondly, develop solutions to short-term global needs. And the second half, for me, the short-term global needs, is what's really influencing me and motivating me right now, because I know that STEM can be a platform for generating important solutions that we currently do not have right now. And that understanding that my work, as well as other individuals' work in STEM, can make us closer to that solution is currently motivating me right now.
I think that's really cool and really inspiring on how we can use our interests to make a great impact on the world and help solve society's problems today. So our next question for you is, do you have any advice on how high school students can choose which college is the best for them? And I know we can't really visit campuses right now, but is there anything that students should look for when trying to figure out which college really stands out to them?
For sure. I think there are still a few factors. And for me, I was quite lucky in the sense that I did get to do on-campus visits, and I still had that opportunity. And so that was kind of a question I was asking myself too, is how can students right now who are in the position to do on-campus visits necessarily narrow down colleges? I would say that just firstly, if you do not know where you want to study in college, that is perfectly okay. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a more difficult time choosing a college. I would say that if you are unsure about the field, I would look towards colleges that have a more flexible curriculum, just because you do have that opportunity just to understand and figure out what field you necessarily want to study. And so colleges that have more open and flexible curriculums may be a better fit for you. But I would say overall, in terms of a general college search, there are a few features that I would recommend. The first is the flexibility of financial aid. Overall, I think some schools do offer great financial aid programs, but sometimes that's not necessarily the case. And I think when an issue like COVID-19 is happening, economic viability and sustainability is a huge factor right now. And so being able to go to a college that maybe has more flexible financial aid programs where you're able to negotiate with financial counselors is a big factor in choosing a college. I would also say in terms of interest, I would say look at the area in which the college is located for your field. And so if colleges are located, for example, in very populated urban centers like New York, Boston, and California, specifically Silicon Valley, and one wants to pursue a field in tech, those areas are particularly useful in accessing internship, externship, and networking opportunities. So understanding not only that college is an environment for your academic learning, as well as other external opportunities, is what personally helped me narrow down colleges. I particularly chose Boston because it's a great area to explore tech and as well as the internship opportunities, knowing that I'm in close proximity to a lot of resources. And the last factor that I would say for picking a college is ultimately the school environment. And I think this is the hardest one to gauge because you're not going to be able to visit campus. But I would say that there are a couple ways to gauge the school environment. First, reading up about the college. A lot of colleges have admissions blogs that gives kind of insight about student life, as well as the type of students who go there. If you imagine yourself being in that school community, that's a great factor to consider. But I would secondly say another thing is actually read the emails that colleges send you. I know colleges sometimes flood your emails with numerous newsletters and updates, but actually reading those emails gives you a lot of insight about how colleges communicate information, how often they tend to interact with students, and lastly, what type of students they're looking for. And being able to read that information online, I think is actually really important. And I have no doubt that colleges this year are going to be trying to be more engaging in terms of their online presence because they want students to get more information about the college, even though they can't physically visit it.
I think that was all really great advice in terms of like how you can like leverage like reading about the colleges online, since like campus visits aren't open at the time, and like just like all the things that you were talking about, how you can see if like that's the type of environment that's a best fit for you, is all really helpful. So since you're like so involved in like all these different like aspects in terms of like STEM and technology, how do you balance like work and like school, just with like a social life and like recreation?
That's a great question too. I really struggled with this throughout my high school career because I do think that school and like the college pursuit is generally becoming more and more competitive. And so balancing recreation with extracurricular opportunities is quite difficult. I would say actually that for me, I fell into the trap of spreading myself too thin. In my underclassmen year, so freshman and sophomore year, I was interested in STEM, as I mentioned before, but I did not know where exactly I wanted to get involved. So I joined as many clubs as possible. But in doing so, I realized I was overcommitted, but not actually contributing meaningfully to any of these clubs. And so the first piece of advice I would have for balancing extracurriculars or other obligations with recreation is identifying when you are sampling or joining extracurricular activities, which ones you are truly passionate about, and quickly be able to narrow it down to those particular clubs. In doing so, not only would your time commitment be more balanced, but you also feel more energized in participating in those activities, and most likely will be doing more substantial work because you are excited about the cause or whatever you're involved in. And so that would be my first piece of advice. When I did that for my sophomore or junior year, where I ended up cutting down my involvement to the clubs I was mainly interested in, I realized that I didn't necessarily have more free time, but I somehow was able to get all of my tasks done more productively because I was excited about what I wanted to do, and therefore I had more recreation. But overall, I would say, though, in terms of recreation, my main advice to high schoolers is make sure to find a personal hobby to do just for this plain fun of it. The reason why I say that is because that's actually something I regret during high school, is that I may have had a lot of extracurricular hobbies, but really during this quarantine, I started to realize that a lot of personal hobbies or just doing things for the plain fun of it were things that I ended up lacking. And so in your free time, rather than over investing yourself in commitments, I would say use that free time to look at things just for the plain fun of it, whether it be reading, whether it be picking up new cooking activities, truly anything. But yeah, overall, that would be my two pieces of advice: is first narrowing down what you're passionate about, and then secondly, developing personal hobbies. And I think when you do so, you'll be able to find that balance.
That's really great advice. So our next question for you is, do you have any advice for students or high school students on how to pick a career that's right for them?
Okay. I would say is that picking a career right now in high school is not necessarily something you have to solidify within your time in high school. It is a very fluid process in the sense of you have to identify where your skills lie and how you want to apply them. And that can be a very difficult process to navigate through. That's something that I'm still struggling with right now, actually, is that I'm either interested in doing pure research in artificial intelligence and going down that path, or potentially working in industry or working in venture capitalist firms. And so that's a wide rate of interests. And so even in high school, I knew that by the end of high school, I would still have very diverse interests I would have to navigate. So my advice for figuring out a career, though, is that you don't have to feel pressured to come up with a career by the end of high school, but I do recommend that students should be able to identify what their strong skills are and potentially how you could apply those skills in the future. The reason for that is what I just mentioned before, is that that's what ultimately one's career is going to be. It's going to be a reflection of what a student is good at or what an individual is good at and how they're applying it to the real world. And so just most generally, whether it be academic fields you're interested in or skills, for example, if you're great at public speaking and you know that public speaking will be something you'll be using in your career, be able to consider that in the process of potentially narrowing down careers. And secondly, I would also say that a lot of college counselors actually could be a good resource for you. College counselors are actually great at providing resources in terms of careers, as well as providing surveys that one could take just to figure out generally where your skill sets could apply. Even though these careers may not necessarily dictate where you end up in the future, it's still good to be able to identify what your skills are. And college counselors come from a position where they try to identify student skills and tell students how exactly to use these skills to get into college. And so by that logic, they should be able to figure out how to help you in the process of identifying long-term uses of your skills. And so consult external resources, and for careers, identify your skills. You don't necessarily have to solidify the job positions exactly.
I think that's like really helpful because I know like a lot of students, especially in high school, there's just so many options, and even within STEM, there's so many different career paths and majors that it's really hard to just choose one. So I think that like reaching out to external resources like you mentioned, and just taking into consideration that it's okay to not have it all figured out, and like just really focusing on your strengths, that's I think a great piece of advice. We're so happy to have you here on our panel today. Like we learned so much, and I think it's just really inspiring to hear your journey, and like all the advice you've given us is like truly so helpful.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. This truly was an honor to be here, and I'm really glad, and I hope that my advice will be helpful to future students.